Most people think they know the Wild West. Dusty cowboys, honest lawmen, dangerous outlaws, a land of freedom, justice, and opportunity. But what if the most honest images of the Wild West were hidden on purpose? What if the photographs that told the real story were locked away, destroyed, or quietly censored? Not because they were fake, but because they were too real. These were images that showed brutality instead of bravery, exploitation instead of opportunity, death instead of glory. For decades, history books showed us paintings and romantic illustrations. But the camera, cold, silent, and unforgiving, captured something else entirely. This is the story of those photographs. The images that exposed violence, racism, poverty, and cruelty. The images that didn't fit the legend. And the images that powerful people didn't want remembered. When photography arrived in the American West in the mid-1800s, it was still a fragile and dangerous process. Photographers carried heavy wooden cameras, glass plates coated in chemicals, portable darkrooms pulled by wagons. Each photograph took time. Each image required stillness. This alone challenges the myth we often hear, that the Wild West was too fast and chaotic to be photographed. The truth is far more unsettling. Photographers didn't capture action. They captured aftermath. Bodies after gunfights. Faces after lynchings. Towns after massacres. And those images told stories newspapers wouldn't print. One of the most shocking truths revealed by early Western photography is how openly death was treated. Dead outlaws were not buried quietly. They were posed. In many photographs, bodies are propped against walls, eyes forced open, weapons placed in hands they no longer controlled. These images served a purpose. They were warnings. This is what happens if you break the law. But here's what history books often leave out. Many of these men were never proven guilty. Some were shot while sleeping. Some were captured and executed without trial. Some were simply in the wrong place, with the wrong skin color. These photographs existed, but they were rarely shown to the public later because they shattered the idea of frontier justice. Perhaps the most disturbing photographs from the Wild West are those connected to lynchings. Official history often describes lynching as a Southern problem. The photographs tell a different story. In Western towns, Arizona, California, Texas, New Mexico, lynch mobs were common. Men were hanged from trees, from bridges, from unfinished buildings, and photographers were invited. Crowds posed proudly beside the bodies. Women and children stood smiling. Lawmen often stood nearby, doing nothing. These images were real. They were documented. But later, when textbooks were written, these photos disappeared. Because they didn't show justice. They showed celebration of murder. Popular culture paints sheriffs and marshals as heroic figures standing alone against chaos. But photographs reveal a darker complexity. Some lawmen were former outlaws. Some were hired guns for railroad companies. Some enforced laws selectively, protecting the powerful and punishing the poor. In several censored photographs, lawmen are seen standing over bodies they personally killed, sometimes unarmed men. These images were uncomfortable. They blurred the line between protector and executioner, and so they were quietly removed from public circulation. Few subjects were photographed more obsessively and more dishonestly than Native Americans. Government photographers staged images to portray indigenous people as either noble savages or defeated primitives. But uncensored photographs told another story. Images of starving families, children stripped of traditional clothing and forced into boarding schools, Entire villages burned and abandoned. Some photographs showed mass graves after military raids. These images contradicted official government reports, so they were labeled sensitive, archived, and forgotten. History often presents Western women as saloon girls or pioneer wives. The photographs tell a harsher truth. Many women were photographed in brothels, not glamorized but exhausted. Teenage girls posed under false names. Some images show women visibly injured, bruised, or addicted. These photographs revealed a system of exploitation tied to mining towns and railroad camps. They didn't fit the clean frontier narrative, so they were censored. Children worked in mines, on ranches, in factories tied to Western expansion. Photographs exist showing boys covered in coal dust, girls standing beside industrial machines taller than themselves. These images prove the frontier was not freedom, it was survival at any cost. Later historians avoided these images because they contradicted the idea that the West was a land of opportunity. The reason these photographs were censored is simple. They made people uncomfortable. They challenged myths. They exposed hypocrisy. They showed that violence wasn't rare, it was routine. So editors chose paintings instead, illustrations instead, stories instead. The camera was too honest. By the early 1900s, many of these photographs were locked away in archives. Some were destroyed. Some were mislabeled. Some were simply ignored. The Wild West became a legend, and legends don't like evidence. By the late 1800s, executions in the Wild West were no longer quiet legal procedures. They were events. Photographs reveal crowds gathering hours in advance, vendors selling food, children lifted onto shoulders for a better view. In several censored images, the condemned stands on a wagon or wooden platform, rope already placed around the neck, while hundreds stare silently into the camera. These were not criminals hidden from society. They were displayed. What history books often fail to explain is that many of these executions were rushed. Trials lasted minutes. Evidence was thin. Confessions were beaten out of suspects. The photographs proved it, and that made them dangerous. The railroad is often remembered as the symbol of progress. But some of the most disturbing Wild West photographs reveal what that progress cost. Unmarked graves along newly built tracks. Chinese laborers photographed moments after deadly explosions. Bodies crushed beneath railcars, left where they fell. Photographers documented these scenes not to honor the dead, but to record efficiency. Workers were replaceable. Lives were cheap. Many of these images were later classified as industrial documentation rather than historical evidence, a quiet way to erase responsibility. Chinese immigrants helped build the West, but the photographs that survived show they were treated as disposable. Images exist of entire camps burned after racial riots. Men photographed hanging from poles while mobs stand proudly nearby. Mass deportations carried out at gunpoint. These photos contradicted official government narratives of peaceful settlement, so they vanished from textbooks. The Wild West was never equal. The camera proved it. Decades after towns were abandoned, photographers and archaeologists uncovered mass graves. Some belonged to miners killed during labor disputes. Others to Native American communities, wiped out in a single night. Some contained bodies with hands tied, skulls fractured, bullets embedded. Photographs of these discoveries existed, but they raised questions no one wanted to answer. Who killed them? Why were there no records? Why were entire towns silent? The images were archived, and the questions left unanswered. Photography didn't just expose cruelty. It was sometimes used to manufacture guilt. In several cases, men labeled as dangerous outlaws were photographed after death, posed with weapons they never owned. Captions lied. Names were changed. Histories rewritten. Why? Because a clean villain made the law look heroic. Later historians discovered inconsistencies, but the photographs had already shaped public memory. Truth arrived too late. Women who broke the law were treated differently. Photographs show them restrained, humiliated, displayed as warnings rather than individuals. Some were executed for crimes men routinely survived. Others were punished simply for defying social norms. Many of their photographs were destroyed entirely because society wasn't ready to admit how brutally it treated women who didn't obey. By the early 1900s, the problem became clear. The photographs told one story. The nation wanted another. Publishers realized romantic stories sold better than grim reality. Hollywood followed. The Wild West became clean, heroic, simplified, and the photographs that contradicted this version quietly disappeared. Some images survived only because archivists hid them away rather than destroy them. Labeled as graphic, sensitive, not suitable for public display. Decades passed. Generations grew up believing a carefully edited legend. And the photographs waited. These censored photographs threatened more than comfort. They challenged national identity, the idea of moral progress, the myth of justified expansion. They proved the Wild West wasn't born heroic. It was violent, unequal, and deeply human. That truth was harder to sell. For much of the 20th century, the censored photographs of the Wild West remained silent. They sat in museum basements, in mislabeled folders, in private collections inherited by families who never spoke about them. It wasn't until the mid to late 1900s that historians began opening these archives with new questions. Not who were the heroes, but who paid the price. As each photograph resurfaced, the legend began to crack. Modern viewers reacted differently than earlier generations. There was no pride, no celebration, only disbelief. People saw children standing beside lynched bodies, lawmen smiling over corpses, women staring into cameras with hollow eyes. These were not scenes of justice or adventure. They were scenes of trauma. And once seen, they could not be unseen. Even now, not all Wild West photographs are publicly displayed. Some institutions argue they are too disturbing. Others fear backlash. Some worry about legal responsibility. But the deeper reason is simpler. These images challenge the foundation of national storytelling. They reveal that progress was built on suffering, that order often came from violence, that silence was chosen. History, once confronted, cannot remain comfortable. Photographs are different from written records. They don't argue. They don't explain. They don't justify. They simply show. And what they show is devastating. A single image can undo 100 heroic stories. This is why the camera was feared. It didn't care about myths. When Western films dominated cinema, filmmakers made a deliberate choice. They avoided realism. Executions became quick and clean. Violence became justified. Victims became nameless. The censored photographs were never consulted because they would have made entertainment impossible. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of these images is anonymity. So many faces remain unidentified. So many stories unfinished. Men labeled outlaw without proof. Women unnamed. children forgotten. The camera preserved them, but history failed them. These photographs do not ask for admiration. They demand acknowledgement. They ask us to understand that the past was not simpler, not nobler, not cleaner. It was real, and reality is often uncomfortable. The Wild West does not disappear when the myth dies. It becomes something more meaningful. A lesson, a warning, a record of human choices. These images remind us that history is not written only by victors. Sometimes it survives in a glass plate negative, hidden in a drawer, waiting to be seen. In every era, uncomfortable truths are buried. And in every era, someone finds them. The censored photographs of the Wild West teach us this. When images are hidden, it's usually because they reveal something powerful people don't want remembered. Remembering them is not about shame. It's about honesty. The Wild West was not a fairy tale. It was a human story, violent, flawed, and deeply real. And the camera saw it all, even when no one wanted to look.